All right, everybody. I am Spegtacular, the Silver Stacular. That's right. 2023 is upon us. I have Steven's best loot right here. We had him on the show in 2022, and we're doing it again because Steven has a lot of good information. He's big in the social media world when it comes to selling. I got fireworks going on around me right now, Steven. So my mind is, listening to some of these blasts going on. I feel like I'm maybe in Iraq or something right now. So
yeah, it sounds like it.
Start panicking. If I start panicking, just realize that I'm being fired upon right now. But people are celebrating, so that's cool. But how's it going with you?
It's going pretty good, man. 2022 was a pretty crazy year. The market was all over the place. I grew the business quite a bit. We did a bunch of shows in 2022, which is fun, getting out there, meeting you guys face to face, and getting to put faces to names on a lot of people I've done business with over social and stuff. So it was a crazy year. I'm interested to see what 2023 brings. It's looking a little weird going into 2023. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, we're going to talk about that, but I want to ask you, where are you finding your business to be the best? What social media platform exactly?
Well, I do the majority of my sales through Instagram. I do have a Discord server, and I've done Whatnot, and I have an eBay page, and I kind of got my hands in everything a little bit, but the primary place is Instagram, and the main reason I like Instagram as a social platform is because it allows you to DM anyone. I've built a little bit of a following on TikTok, and I get a lot of people commenting on my stuff, wanting to buy stuff on TikTok. And I usually just funnel them over to Instagram because even on TikTok, you both have to follow each other in order to do any kind of DM exchange, which is rather weird. And then you got to follow them, they got to follow you, and then you can finally do a DM exchange. So it's just a little more complicated. The nice thing about Instagram is anybody can DM anybody, and Twitter's kind of the same way. I'm pretty sure Twitter is the both have to follow each other rule as well. So I'm sure they do that so people don't get a ton of spam messages, which you do on Instagram, but that's why I like that platform better than a lot of the other ones.
Right on. And Steven, I'm going to put your information down in the description of this video so people can check you out. I know I had a few of my followers check you out and go to your Instagram and buy some stuff from you there. They were really happy with me showing them to you. And so, yes, everybody that's watching right now, Steven has really good prices. He is a good dealer. He gets stuff out quickly. I bought from him personally. So I would highly recommend that you look at Steven's best loot and check out what he has. Steven, 2022, what was some of the most popular items you were selling?
Well, it kind of changed throughout the year. Funnily enough, I would say like beginning and middle of the year, there was a lot more, what I would say like normal buying. People buying government stuff, Britannias, Eagles, Maples, all that kind of stuff. Towards the back half of the year, we saw that really huge, steep increase in premiums, right? Now, premiums have been high pretty much ever since 2020 happened, but they went really up the back end of 2022, starting like around the summers when stuff started to really gap. So I've seen the last half of the year, I've actually been selling a lot more generics than anything else, which is weird because I'd usually have just, tubes and tubes of Buffaloes just setting around, for whenever anybody wanted, just a cheap generic. But most people were buying, Germania rounds and Brits and all that kind of stuff. Back half of 2022, much more generics going. In fact, I have a hard time keeping generics in stock, like 1 ounce bars, Buffalo rounds. I mean, it sounds, for me, from my time in the business, it sounds crazy to say like I've had a hard time keeping Buffalo rounds in stock. But I really have, because everybody's trying to get that lower and lower premium, since premiums just kind of went on everything,
Gotcha. So people are trying to get the lowest price and they're stacking for weight. What about things like Pre33? When you get those in, are those pretty hot?
Yeah, I mean, Pre33 Morgans have all been really hot. Any of the Pre64 stuff too. Barbers, SLQs, Walkers. I saw a big increase in the price of Constitutional this year. I mean, I know you've been in the hobby for a while, just like me. Like, there was a long time where Constitutional was kind of like the redheaded stepchild, right? Where like people like me and you stacked it because we liked the history and we thought it was cool and what it represented, but it wasn't really a super popular thing in the hobby. And in fact, I remember even in like 2018, I remember going to a coin shop and I asked him what the best price he could give me if I got $100 face value of Constitutional. And when he gave me the price, I mathed it out and it was actually under melt, not a ton under melt, but like 10 or 20 cents under melt. He sold me Constitutional for. And now, I mean, Constitutional selling at like a 15-20% premium, which is just crazy. So a lot of that older stuff, one of the ones I think is a real sleeper right now. Well, I'll give you two things that I think are a sleeper. One, I think St. Gaudens $20 pieces, a real sleeper. I know you've been buying up a few, but I've seen $5 Indians, 2.5, $10 Indians. All of those shoot a lot higher versus their gold value than St. Gaudens. St. Gaudens are still trending just a little bit above their gold value, and versus like a 2.5 is selling for like 2 times its gold value. So I think that's a sleeper. Also, peace dollars, man. You take a peace dollar and a Morgan dollar, they're only made 20 years apart, and the Morgan's worth twice as much as the peace dollar. And I've seen more and more people asking me about peace dollars and wanting to buy peace dollars. So I think those might start, all those people that get priced out of Morgans might start flooding over to peace dollars. So I think we might see a little bit of a lift in those too. It all depends on, what happens in the market and everything, but just two things I think are kind of sleeping in that older category.
Now, you are familiar with the silver squeeze, and we're allowed to have different opinions. I don't truly know your full opinion on that, but I don't believe the silver squeeze is a possibility personally. But I actually, now that you bring up the peace dollar, what I want to do this year is I want to try to squeeze peace dollars. I want to try, because I think silver squeeze as a just any kind of silver you buy, I think that's way too broad. There's too much of it out there. But if you can focus on one thing, and especially like a numismatic item, like a peace dollar, and potentially try to squeeze those, that might be something. And that's kind of like what I want to try to do this year with my viewers. But tell me about your thoughts with the silver squeeze, and maybe even that little idea that I just had with the silver squeeze peace dollar idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to jump into the peace dollars first, I think that you have a potential to get a really high return if you stack up a bunch of peace dollars right now. We look at Morgans, okay, 2018, 2019, Morgans that I could buy for 30, $40. And we're talking like slab Morgans MS63s I could get for like $40. Now, those same Morgans, wholesalers will buy them from me for 80, $90. So they've doubled, if not tripled in price over the last 3-4 years. Peace dollars have maybe gone up 20% in value. So I think there's a lot of room there for peace dollars to double or triple and catch up with Morgans, or if Morgans continue to rally, peace dollars go with that. Now, there's hot and cold seasons on everything, right? Morgans have shot up a bunch and then calmed down a little bit, and shot up a bunch and calmed down a little bit. And that's all kind of natural market progression. But you look at some like a common date GSA dollar, right? 2019, I could pick those up for 125. There were times where they were selling for upwards of 400. Now they've calmed back down to about 300, 325, right? That's still way above 125. And me and you both know that spot didn't triple. So that's all a demand squeeze, right? When you have this older stuff like Morgans, Peace, Pre33, any of it, there's only so much of it out there. You can't make more of it. So as more people get into the hobby and more people discover these different things and want to buy them, that becomes a supply and demand crunch, right? Which is basically what those squeezes are. And that just is going to cause the price to increase until people stop buying, and there's not enough buys to fill up those cells. And then the price kind of settles down to where there's an equilibrium there of exchange happening. And then as soon as more people come into the hobby, then that price is going to increase. So I definitely see, that I think that could be possible with the peace dollars. Now, to the silver price overall, the people that really push like the silver squeeze and crash COMEX and all of that kind of stuff, most of the points and the things they state, 100% valid, 100% true, right? They sell more deliverable silver than they can actually deliver. You know, the whole market is traded on debt. It's traded on facsimile paper quantities of XYZ, not real world hard assets. So that part of what they preach is true and is theoretically possible to squeeze to a demand point where stuff just shoots up to the moon because none of it's available. Do I think that's realistically going to happen? Probably not. I think in everything, you're going to have ebbs and tides, right? So as silver price moves up, sure, there's going to be a lot of people trying to buy it, and that's why the price is moving up, but there's also going to be people wanting to sell it. So there'll be people looking to cash in that bought that silver at $15, $20, $30, whatever, that once it's 50, they want to close out their investment. So you are going to have liquidity coming to the market in that form of people wanting to liquidate their investment. And that's not just even like me and you type of people. We're talking about, you know, big money people, people that own thousands of tons. You know, if you have thousands of tons of silver that you bought at 18 and it's up at 50, might be a good time to cash in, right? So there's both sides to that. So the idea that we could push COMEX to a demand point that they can't fill and it would crash the market and cause a silver price to go through the room, is it theoretically possible? Yes. Is it likely? I doubt it, because you would have to kind of get everyone on the same page that, hey, we're not selling until that price goes really, really high, right? And that's just not going to happen. There's going to be people out there that dump large quantities of silver. You see it in the bullion market. You see it happen every day, right? Like the price of Engelhard prospector rounds will start going up and up and up and up because there's a lot of demand for them and there's not a lot of them available wholesale. So wholesalers start offering more and more and more and more for them. And it gets to a certain point where then some dealer out there or some collector, somebody that's got 50,000 of them sitting in a safe, dumps them all. And then that price just goes and catches back up to the rest of where silver is. So, you know, you see that happen with different assets within precious metals all the time. So the fact that we would be able to build ourselves a situation where everyone was buying and no one was selling, and it pushes it to this breaking point where the price just goes zhoof and a $50,000 silver, whatever, I just think it's highly, highly unlikely. So that's kind of my take on that. I don't know if you have any more thoughts beyond that, but.
Well, I mean, I saw here recently where when silver was, you know, talking close to around 30, there was a lot of sellers. People were really excited to go ahead and take profits on silver at 30.
Exactly.
So, you know, there's 35, there's 40, there's 45, there's 50. You know, at all these points, people are going to be like, I'm out.
60, 70, 100, 200. I mean, like, what's your number? Everyone has that number where it's like, all right, I'm good now, you know?
Right.
What I've always said, and, you know, on my talks and stuff on live on Instagram, what I've always said is the situation where I see $1,000, $2,000 silver, where I see it realistically happening is a crash and a collapse of the U.S. economy in the United States as we know it. And so I say, for me as an investor and someone that lives in this country, that's the most likely scenario. And so I hope that that does not happen. I hope we don't go into like a, you know, a Venezuela type situation, right? I pray that we don't go into that. But that's the most likely situation where we see $5,000 silvers, where we go into a hyperinflation, the economy's collapsing, the government's collapsing, we're printing, you know, it's costing $10 trillion to buy a loaf of bread. In those type of situations, yeah, I could see silver going crazy off into thousands of dollars, but at the same time, that thousands of dollars is not really worth the same amount of money. And your quality of life and the quality of life for all the people you love is kind of gone. So that's not a situation I would hope for.
No, I agree. And a lot of people talk about the economic collapse or the SHTF scenario. And you're absolutely right. In that scenario, it's not going to be good for anybody. So just because your silver is worth $1,000 doesn't mean you're going to be enjoying that $1,000 silver bar at that time. It's going to be a pretty bad situation.
Yeah.
I get a lot of questions about this. I'm sure you do too. I kind of view the metal as speculative, although it has some industrial needs for sure. But platinum, what do you think about platinum?
Yeah, I mean, I've really liked platinum and palladium for a while. I put out a video on YouTube a while back about palladium when it was down around $1,300 on why I thought it was a really good buy. But both the platinum, palladium, rhodium, all those family of metals, we use it a lot more than we can pull it out of the ground, and it's really rough to work with. It's really hard to make things and really expensive to make things out of them. So I thought that whole family of metal has been undervalued for quite some time. There's no real reason in my mind that platinum shouldn't be at least equal to, if not a little bit greater value than gold. Now, gold's always been kind of the gold standard, for lack of a better term. And so people have always, on a retail side, invested a lot more in gold. But I definitely think platinum is a sleeper. Palladium's a sleeper. We saw that this year more than ever, because once the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine popped off, that's where the majority in the platinum and the palladium's coming from. And what happened? I went from being able to order platinum and palladium eagles and maples and all these other products to being able to order basically none of it for the majority of the year. And I remember going to the Long Beach show early last year, right after the whole war in Russia and Ukraine and everything popped off, and other dealers were coming up and buying out all of my platinum and palladium, because they knew, just like I knew, you're not going to be able to get it for the rest of the year until the stuff calms down. And it's still kind of that way. Like, platinum eagles are somewhat available. They go unavailable, available a lot on the wholesale end. But a lot of those products are really hard to find. And you look at some of the premiums that those are bringing, like 1/10 platinum eagles right now are selling for basically double melt. And there's a reason for that. Anytime premiums are really high, this is something I always bring up whenever I talk about premiums and stuff, but anytime premiums are really high, it seems like a very good indicator that spot price is too low for that item. I think, silver is a perfect example. Over the last couple months, I've been selling, 1 ounce silver for virtually the same price since silver was about 20% cheaper. Because when silver was down around $20, the premium was like $6. Now that we're up around $23, the premium's like $3. So it's been like $26 for an ounce of silver this whole time. It's just the premium caught up to the price faster than spot did. So I think you see some of that with platinum and palladium. I mean, look at what you got to pay for an ounce of palladium right now. You're not anywhere near spot. Platinum's at least like 100 over for just like a generic bar. So I think there could be some really good moves in 2023 with that. Now, if the war in Russia, war in Ukraine, that stuff kind of calms, then more platinum, palladium will get flooded in the market, and I think you'll see a drop off there, at least for a little bit. But I don't see it pulling back majorly in 2023 with the current world climate.
I would have thought that with Russia being such a big power when it comes to palladium, that we would have saw the spot price of palladium go through the roof. But that really didn't happen. It's just harder to get the stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a lot harder to get it. And I mean, we did see it to a certain extent. So, I put out a video at the end of last year, and palladium was around $1,300 an ounce when I put out that video. And one of the things I talked about was palladium, 65% of it was coming from Russia, and we were using about 5 to 10% more than we were mining and recycling combined. So we're having less palladium reserves every single year. And when the whole Russia-Ukraine thing popped off, it shot up to about $3,000. And even now it's at what, about 1900-ish between the bid and ask. So, we've still seen a solid 30-40% increase, but I don't think, because the industrial demand is there, but it's still mostly getting met. We haven't seen that like crazy rise in price yet. As those reserves get lower and lower and lower, then you'll start to see that rise in price. And that's why you can't get it really on the retail end right now. Like, I don't know a single one of the wholesalers I use that has Palladium Eagles or Palladium anything in stock, because you can't get it on the retail end. It's all getting sucked up on the industrial end.
Gotcha. You kind of hinted early on in the show that 2023 is going to be a little weird. What are you talking about there?
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of trends starting already. I've seen a lot more scamming and fraud, both not only in like the social media community, but just in general. A lot more crime, a lot more fraud, a lot more people kind of desperate for money. I've seen a lot of my customers that are more, like middle class and middle income, being able to save less, invest less, buy less gold and silver. My higher net worth customers and stuff like that, not so much, but a lot of the middle income and stuff have had to cut down quite a bit on what they're buying. And so you look at all that, you look at what's happening with the economy and everything else, in the stock market, all of these big stocks that everybody thought were foolproof stocks like Tesla, Apple, all of these are crashing to a fraction of what they were earlier this year. It's all setting up for a pretty large recession. I mean, if we're not already, I think we're already technically in a recession, but I think there's a lot of signs in the wall that things are going to get a lot worse. I was an investor and I traded stocks and commodities through the 2008 crash. And I just see a lot of the same writing on the wall going into 2023. So it's a little worrisome for me. Like, I want to grow the business this year. And I don't think there'll be a shortage of people wanting to put money into gold and silver as the economy crashes. But, what direction do I go to best set me, my business, my family up for success while, everything's kind of falling apart over the next year. And, we really haven't hit that bad spot yet. I know a lot of people got laid off during the pandemic, and a lot of people have had struggles, and there's been increase in crime, and there's been all this stuff going on, but we haven't got to that point yet where, they're doing government shutdowns because we can't afford, to run government buildings. People haven't been getting kicked out of their homes, and things like that haven't started happening yet. And I think very likely 2023 is the year where we see a lot of that stuff start happening. And so, how do you position yourself personally in the best scenario? And then also, how do you protect yourself so that you don't succumb to, those same downfalls that happen during a recession and a big economic sell-off type situation. So, that's the thing that had me a little bit, I would say, pessimistic going into 2023. I'd love to be optimistic going into this year, but there's just a lot of writing on the wall that doesn't look good, in my opinion.
I saw a news story literally today, hours ago, that said that Biden currently has a handle on inflation, and we're doing much better right now. I don't see that happening at my grocery store personally yet. Yeah. Maybe it just hasn't hit my grocery store yet, the fix, but I'm holding my breath for that one. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And I mean, if anything, we're seeing the opposite, right? I mean, gas prices are the highest they've been. Groceries are the highest they've been. I deal in a fair amount of debt in my business too, because you're talking about large dollar amounts of stuff when you're moving precious metals. And I've seen, I've seen the loan community, as far as the big banks and the business lenders and stuff like that, they're getting a lot more sheepish and a lot more stringent about money they're handing out, which, I mean, that tells you a lot right there,
Yeah, it's weird, it's scary. I don't know how people can afford things. I'm buying things with a decent job, and then like a secondary income with YouTube, and I'm sitting there going like, wow, I can't believe how expensive this stuff is. And then like people that are, getting less income than me, how are they driving around like a new truck? I mean, those things are expensive as can be now. It's like a truck payment for a bare, like from the factory. It's like $700 a month. Like, who's got that kind of money just laying around for a truck? I don't get it. I don't understand.
Well, and that's, and that's kind of the scary thing about this recession to me is in all previous recessions, at least through my lifetime, right? I was born in a recession. Okay. I was born in 1987. Stock market hit a low that year. But I saw the .com bubble burst. I was actively investing and trading during the last recession and US economy crash. In most of those, what usually happens is as the economy crashes, interest rates spike up, loans, business loans, stuff like that become basically impossible. Home loans and things like that become basically impossible. And we have this kind of cool off period where life sucks because there's not nearly as much money moving around. But that's necessary to build the foundation to start moving economically prosperous again. What we saw this time around is a completely different strategy where instead of jacking that interest rate up, halting loans, halting business loans, halting growth, they went for this tapering strategy, right? Where they only raise stuff a little bit. And I think that's where you're seeing those new cars and new homes and people still starting businesses during the pandemic and all of that kind of stuff, is because since those interest rates didn't spike up like they normally do during a fall off, they just tapered slowly in 0.5 and 3/4 point increases. Banks and big money was still lending like crazy up until really recently. It's finally started to build. That tapering is built to that point where people are starting to pull back and saying like, yeah, like with that interest rate, we can't afford that house. With that interest rate, we can't afford that car. With that interest rate, we can't afford that business loan. But they've been still taking those loans over the last 2 years because the interest rates hadn't got to a point where it was unaffordable. So will that make this a less of a economic blow off like they plan it to be or say it's going to be? I don't know. In my opinion, it almost seems like that's going to make it a lot worse. There's people the last 2 years that have been taking on debts that they probably shouldn't have, because the interest rates weren't reflective of where the economy actually was. And so somebody's going to end up paying the piper on all that. We're going to see how it plays out. I think 2023 is going to be one of those pivoting years, one of those years we talk about for a long time, just like we talk about 2008 and 1999 and 1987 and so on and so forth. I think 2023 is going to be that year. And, maybe Biden's the economic genius and he found a way to cause a recession to barely have a hiccup. Or I think more likely, there's going to be some pain over the next year.
And all we can do is wait and see and try to just, diversify our portfolio and live within our means and kind of just weather the storm when it comes. That's all we can do. Is it's a wait and see kind of thing.
Well, and I think too, kind of going back to what you were saying about the silver squeeze, I have never looked at precious metals as a get rich quick kind of scheme. You know what I mean? It's not a thing where you're trying to, double up your net worth. I think most people that talk about precious metals as a store of value. And so that's that's why you like precious metals, is for uncertain times like these, because it will go up when there's a dysfunctional economy and a crashing economy. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're richer. If it cost you $2 a gallon to fill up your tank and silver was at 20, and then it costs you $4 a gallon to fill up your tank and silver's at 40. Are you really richer? Because you can buy the same amount of gas. So, that's personally why I started buying and investing in precious metals, was because it worked in that counter inflation kind of asset class.
Right, exactly. You spoke briefly about coin shows that you were attending. Tell me about those. Like, how's that going for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the coin shows are some of the funnest things I do. The ones I've been really consistently setting up at is the Long Beach show, the Long Beach Expo, down in California. Real fun show, real big. It's got not just gold and silver and coin dealers, but it's also has sports card dealers and comic book dealers and stuff like that. It's called a collectibles expo. So it's got a little bit of everything there. It's a nice big show. It's real fun. I recommend you go out if you're in that area and check it out. And then I've also been setting up consistently at the Vegas coin show, which that one is a much smaller show than Long Beach, but it's Vegas. I mean, you get to have fun at the show, but then you're in Vegas. So, you get to go out to good dinners and shows and everything else. And then I've traveled as a buyer to a few of them. Additionally, like this year, I went to the ANA show in Chicago. That's a whole nother level of size show. I mean, that show is ginormous. I know you've gone to the Fun show, which I think is similar size, but a show that massive is just crazy. I think about setting up at one of those, but I mean, honestly, the show's so huge. It's kind of like it's fun enough to just go through it and buy. But yeah, I mean, I've had a really good time getting to meet people from the community, getting to meet more dealers and customers face to face. And I think there's I don't know the best way to put it, but there's something really pure, I guess, about being able to just exchange assets without any digital means involved, any digital currencies involved, no credit cards, no nothing. Just I give you cash or gold, you give me cash or gold, and there's something that feels very right about doing business that way. And so I kind of appreciate the shows for that.
I'm a little upset though that you're not going to be coming to the Fun show here in a couple days to come.
Yeah, I really wanted to. I've been running into some issues on Instagram. I posted a picture of some pew-pews, as we call them, some weapons that I bought myself as a birthday present. And that got me shadow banned on Instagram, joyfully. So I'm kind of while I'm dealing with that, I really have to lean into the business more and not be traveling as much, because it's harder for customers to get a hold of me. It's harder for customers to find my account, stuff like that. So I have to put a lot more work into pushing content out and being live more and doing that kind of stuff to get the same business I would be normally getting. So that's kind of a bummer, but I'll come out to Fun one of these times. I was planning on coming out to this one, but it's just end up not being in the cards, because that happened right at the beginning of December. So right when I was getting ready to lock in everything for Fun is when that all happened. So is what it is.
That's so weird. I've posted pictures of guns on there before, and I don't understand. What's the problem? I mean, as long as you're not doing something crazy with them or showing yourself like shooting up something, but if you're just maintaining responsibility, what's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of this conspiracy stuff happen with the Twitter files and stuff coming out with Elon Musk. And I think, one of the big problems that these tech companies have, not only do they have people at the helm that have a certain agenda, but a lot of the moderation is done through artificial intelligence. And you have the artificial intelligence programmed by people who have a certain agenda. And obviously the artificial intelligence knows that I sell stuff on my account. It figures that out. And so since I posted pictures of guns, even though they weren't for sale, and I literally put a caption of, basically like, this was my birthday present to myself, it struck me as the guideline strike I got was attempting to sell firearms. So I appealed it, and I don't know if AI gets the appeal or who gets the appeal, but the appeal came back rejected and upholding their finding that I was attempting to sell firearms. So
that is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's gun companies with Instagram accounts and stuff. So I don't get it.
Careful. You got to be careful what you say politically. You got to be careful about you showing off your fancy little guns, which you have the right to have. Thankful for the Second Amendment there.
Well, and I mean, on that same notion, I don't know if you've ever been in any of these lives before, but I've had live sales on Instagram get shut down because of people saying stuff in the comments that Instagram thought was like hate speech. Like I was selling American Eagle slabs, and I had ones with blue labels and ones with black labels, and my live got shut down 3 times because people were saying like bin the black label, and for whatever reason that term black label got my live shut down multiple times when I was trying to sell them. So I just had to like give code names for them. So it's kind of crazy, man. And like I said, what's been coming out in the Twitter files, a lot of that stuff doesn't shock me because I work, my whole business is run off the social media space, and I see these weird things happen. And so then when you're finding out that these companies are, doing things to specifically squash certain sentiments and certain ideas and certain philosophies, then it makes sense. You're like, yeah, that's why that live was getting shut down, and that's why this post got pulled down, and XYZ. So
very, very wild. All right, I got one more question for you.
Sure.
You're gonna like this one because I know you dealt in cryptos a little bit. Cryptocurrencies, are they dead? And if it wasn't for cryptos, do you think that silver and gold would have got more? The price of silver and gold would have rose more because of the lack of an investment being an extra thing like crypto?
I'll answer you the second part first. I think to a certain extent, yes. Because I think that there's a certain amount of people that were looking to put their money in something other than US dollars, and that money funneled into cryptocurrency because they were of a younger generation or just got exposed to it earlier or whatever else. And so that money went to crypto, and it may have gone to gold or silver if not. However, I don't think it's super significant because there's a lot of different things you can use to hedge against inflation. People buy high-end watches, people buy collectibles. We saw all of those sectors go up. When crypto was rising, gold and silver was rising. Rolexes and high-end watches were at their all-time highs. Sports cards were selling at all-time highs. All of those counter assets. It's people putting money in assets. Real estate was rising. People putting money in assets rather than investing in the economy and the US dollar, right? That's what it is. So if crypto didn't exist, I think gold and silver would have had a little more money in it, but so would have collectibles, so would watches, so would houses, so would have every other asset class that people invest in counter to the US dollar. Do I think crypto's dead? I think absolutely not. In my opinion, I mean, could Bitcoin go down more? Sure. But you're talking about a Bitcoin trading at $16,000 right now. When I bought my first Bitcoin, it was trading around 1,000. So it's 16 times from when I first entered into the crypto sphere. So thinking it's dead when it's worth 16 times when I entered it is a hard pill to swallow or a hard statement to make. I think crypto functions in a normal market cycle, just like stocks, just like gold and silver, just like property. Everything else has market cycles where they ebb and tide based on supply and demand. I think crypto does a 5-year market cycle in about 6 months. So you'll see a lot more blow up and you'll see a lot more crash down. But I don't think they're going anywhere soon. I think the only thing that could really put a nail in crypto's coffin is if it was outright banned by something like the US government. If they outright made it illegal, you couldn't buy it on any exchanges, there wasn't anywhere to get it without jumping through a whole bunch of hoops, setting your VPN offshore and setting up an offshore bank account with an offshore wallet. And that was your only way to buy a Bitcoin. I think that would kill it. But otherwise, I think just market sell-offs and blow-offs, I think it's perfectly normal, perfectly natural. I did really well during the last bull run, and I'm just looking forward to whenever the next one starts. Could be 6 months from now, could be 2 years from now. It could be a while before we start seeing positive price action in cryptos again. So I wouldn't say necessarily, oh, buy now and use all your money. This could be the bottom, or we could see another 20-30% dip before we see a true bottom. It's always hard to tell. So
right on. Stephen, I want to thank you for this talk, and I want to do it again if you're down to do it again. Before we go though, please, and I'll have the information down in the description of this video to check out Stephen. But Stephen, just tell people that aren't going to click right now, where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, at Steven's Best Loot on Instagram, always the place I spend the most time. I do have a YouTube as well, and I'm always working on trying to put out more content on there. It's something that's been kind of a side project for me for the last year or so. Steven's Best Loot on there, pretty much Steven's Best Loot on every platform that you could think of: TikTok, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter. I got Steven's Best Loot on all of them, but Instagram is my primary platform. If you want to reach out to me, ask me a question, or whatever, that's the place where you'll get the quickest and easiest responses on Instagram there. Love to do it again anytime you want to chat about stuff, man. I'll always try and make time for you,
and I greatly appreciate it. Stephen, let's do it again. Let's set something up. Don't take Stephen's knowledge for granted. He's a younger guy, but he's well read and he knows what he's talking about. He does a lot of investing too. These younger people out there in the hobbies, and they know what they're doing. They're really, really up to date on this stuff, and they're very wise. And Stephen shows that he knows what he's talking about. So Stephen, thank you.
And just one thing to quantify that too, because a lot of people, it's hard to say, like, who do you listen to? Who do you trust? I don't think you should trust anybody 100%. I think you should always do your own research, but it's good to listen to people's opinions and people's thoughts, so you can help formulate your own. But this is also all I do. All I do is trade physical and digital commodities and assets. I buy and sell bullion for a living, and I trade things like cryptocurrency, stocks, bullion, all of that to earn for my family. So this is all I do. I'm in this reading the news, reading the markets, looking at the charts all day, every day. So it's going to be hard to keep up with me unless you drop everything you do and spend all day focusing on it like I do. So
right on. Well, I'm not willing to do that, so I'm just going to have to come to you. Stephen, thank you very much. And again, down in the description of this video, check out Stephen's Best Loot, and any information down there, just give him a click, check him out. I'm sure you'll want to, buy from him. If you check out some of his prices, you're going to like it. He does really well in his pricing. Stephen, we'll do it again. And hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Spec. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Well, hello, everybody. I seek to educate and entertain through my journey of collecting coins and stacking precious metals. I encourage you to subscribe, and please stay with me on this journey. I am Spegtacular, the Silver Stacular.